Hi, welcome to the Abort Ignorance Montana Podcast. I'm Tanaia, your host, and today we have a very exciting guest on named Emily Schneller. We're going to be telling you a little bit more about her in a bit. She wrote a book called Misled. But first, we want to make sure to remind you to subscribe to our podcast so you can find us wherever you're listening. You can download the episodes. And if you have any questions about this, or if you want to reach out to Emily, or you have thoughts on what we're going to be talking about today, please send those in to abortignorancemt@gmail.com. We love to hear from you guys. And so we want to, just get your feedback on this episode. We're going to be talking about how abortion messaging on the pro-abortion side is just very deceitful, especially for young people, and especially in our colleges and universities. So Emily, welcome on. So glad to have you.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to join you.
Yes, absolutely. So we're both in Montana, but she's in Billings and I'm in Kalispell, and we're just excited to be on together today. So I'm going to share your bio first, and then I'm going to just let you talk a little bit about yourself, and then we'll get into your book and just talking about the pro-abortion messaging. Okay, so let's see. Emily was born and raised in Livingston, Montana, alongside her 4 younger siblings. After high school, Emily moved to Billings to attend Rocky Mountain College, where she earned a degree in political science. During her 4 years at RMC, she served as an officer for the Young Americans for Freedom Club. While in college, Emily worked with several nonprofit organizations, including the Susan B. Anthony List and the Montana Family Foundation. She also spent nearly 2 years as a correspondent for Campus Reform and completed multiple internships. During this time, she wrote her pro-life book, Misled, which was published in 2022, shortly after her husband returned from military deployment. Following college, Emily worked for Congressman Matt Rosendale before stepping into what she considers her most important role yet, motherhood. In 2024, Emily and Jacob welcomed their son, John, and they are now expecting another child. Emily currently works for the Catholic Foundation of Eastern Montana while prioritizing her faith, family, and the pro-life mission. Awesome. Well, we love that, and we share that in common, that our most important role now is motherhood. I also have a young boy, a little bit younger than yours, and congrats on the new one coming.
Thank you so much. It's such a joy. I'm so blessed.
Absolutely. I totally agree. So why don't you just tell our listeners just a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Well, I currently live in Billings, just so blessed to be a wife and a mother, and to have another on the way. And I do currently work for the Catholic Foundation on top of being a mom and staying home with our little one. And my husband is a pilot. He owns a business. Our lives are crazy busy, but I wouldn't have it any other way. And I graduated in 2022, and I got really involved in the pro-life movement during that time after I started going to college, and I just ended up writing a pro-life book while I was in school, and got that published just right after college, right after I graduated. And it was a lot of work, but I'm grateful that God just allowed that to happen, and just pray that it's been a help to anybody who's read it. And this is what it looks like. I'll show you the cover.
That'd be great.
I have a copy. It's called Misled: How the Pro-Abortion Message Deceives Young Americans.
Wow, very catching. And I just got to read that recently. You sent me a copy, and I loved it. It was full of facts and information and stories from Montana universities, but also other universities around the whole country, really, of how this pro-abortion messaging is infiltrating itself into textbooks and professor bias, and then even you have a whole section on social media and how there's just tons of marketing from celebrities and other ways from social media to young people about pro-abortion. So it's just a fantastic book. I loved it. And just tell us a little about that journey of writing that in college. You were getting your degree in political science, and just a little bit about your heart behind the book and just how that came about.
Sure. Yeah. Well, thank you so much. I'm so glad you enjoyed it. I wrote it over the course of I mean, pretty much the full 4 years that I was in school. And I did get my degree in political science. I jumped around to a bunch of different degrees, like most college students tend to kind of do,
Mm-hmm.
and trying to figure out what career path you want to take. But ultimately just felt called to go that route, and politics had just quickly become a big part of my life. My freshman year of school, pretty much right away, I got connected with a new club on campus that had just started, a Young Americans for Freedom chapter, and um, I just loved it. And I really became involved with the pro-life movement after that point. And kind of how the book first came about was just kind of the stirring in me that happened as soon as I started taking some classes. I was taking a psychology course, and it was a human development class. I was going through my textbook one day just to study for a test, and um, I actually came across a full page, maybe 2 pages actually, sort of article, it was a story about a couple that was um, pregnant and considering abortion because they were told that their child may be born with Down syndrome. And I was just pretty shocked to see what this included, and how it was written. Um, you can read about that in my book, but I just wanted to pull up a couple of quotes from it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it said this was coming from, I think, the father in the picture. Uh, he said, "The way I see it, if a baby is going to be deformed or something, abortion is a way to keep everyone from suffering, especially the baby. It's like shooting a horse that's
Jeez.
broken its leg. A lame horse dies slowly, it dies in terrible pain." Um, they then go on to say that the mother, she is pro-choice, he is a chosen child. Um, it looks like they ended up, thank goodness, following through with the pregnancy, and the photo in the textbook shows, which I did include in the book, shows their son, Adam, it looks like, um, who they ended up having. But just the way that they talk about that was just really dehumanizing, just terrible, truly. Comparing your child to a lame horse that needs to be shot,
Yeah.
and talking about him as a chosen child. I think about that child, and how I just think that's awful to say, well, uh, we could have ended your life.
Yeah.
Um, and that was clearly on the table, and so that just really resonated with me.
And that was your first instance of
Yeah,
encountering that type of messaging in school?
right,
Okay.
right. Yeah, that was kind of my first encounter with it, and it wasn't necessarily like I had my professor sit us down in class and talk about this full page article, and um, you know, uh, teach a seminar about abortion in this way or anything. But it was included in a textbook, and I did see it as I was studying, and that was just really bothersome to me. I was like, why is this applicable? Why is this in a textbook
Right.
for a human development class? And um, so that was kind of the first instance that made me just think, well, if I'm seeing this, and going to Rocky Mountain College, it's a very small private school,
Yeah.
um, and I just thought, well, gosh, I wonder what students across the country and in bigger schools and whatnot are encountering, if I'm seeing this in my tiny little school, and my school with Christian ties and everything. And so um, at that point, it had just kind of planted the question in my mind. And from there, I just felt so convicted to become a part of the pro-life movement, to get involved in advocacy and become kind of an activist on campus. And I did that through Young Americans for Freedom. I'm just so grateful for that organization. And I had the opportunity to travel a lot, to go to California, to the Reagan Ranch, to DC, and um, just hear from amazing speakers and learn from incredible people. And I met so many other young people that had these strong traditional conservative values and understood the value of life. And I had the opportunity to go to the March for Life in DC, and I think that was the year that President Trump spoke, and it was just such a moving experience, just so life-giving, and I'm just so grateful for that experience. I hope to get to do that again someday. And um, anyways, yeah, I just became really involved. I tabled a lot on our campus, just to try to be that light, I guess, on campus, just um, to spread some awareness, to tell people about abortion and what it is, and why life is valuable. And unfortunately, a lot of students, at least on our campus, they wanted nothing to do with it. I would get a few hecklers sometimes, but a lot of the time, they wanted to go to class, go back to their dorm or whatever, and go about their day. And I can understand that, but it does concern me, just how little a lot of young people care about politics in general, and just staying away from it, not understanding, I guess, the impact that it has on your everyday life. And yeah, I mean, I ended up, you can read about this. There's lots of articles out there about it, but I had at one point tried to get some crosses put up on campus to basically be like a memorial for unborn lives that we've lost. And I've seen lots of campuses do that before. And um, as a Young Americans for Freedom club, we would put up every year these flags as a memorial for 9/11. And so I thought, well, let's put up some crosses, and tried to get approval for that, and it did not go well. Um,
Wow.
I didn't expect the pushback, unfortunately, that we did get from the administration there at the time. And that was a bit of a fight. And even trying to put up posters on campus, we had one that just simply said "Unborn Lives Matter," and we had our club name on there and meeting time and everything, and we couldn't put it up.
Wow.
And it was really, really frustrating. I was just so heartbroken by that. Um, it's hard. It's hard to be an activist like that on campus, because, you're not only facing just the pushback from your peers and stuff, but um, from the administration, that's almost the hardest part. And so that truly just pushed me even more, and to write this book and to keep doing what I was doing. And yeah, by the grace of God, like I said, I was able to follow through with this and get it published. And I ended up just talking with a lot of my other friends across the country who I had met through Young Americans for Freedom. I would meet them at conferences and stuff, and I just started asking people. I was like, "Hey, what are you seeing on your campus? Do you have professors that are pushing abortion? Are you seeing textbooks like I have?" And then beyond that, I really wanted to make a point to talk about social media, because it is such a major part of our lives, and for our generation. And I get so much of my information from social media, and it's just
Hmm.
it's just how it is, and you can't ignore that. And at that time, when I was in college, I was I was just seeing so many ads and articles and whatnot that really pushed abortion, especially on young girls. And it was just super disturbing to me. And I wanted to shed some light on it because I don't think at the time people were talking about it enough. There was um, not a book or anything out there like this one. And so I just felt like there was a void, and I wanted to fill it and spread this message. So, anyways, yeah, that's kind of how it came about.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. So it started in a textbook that you had in a
Yeah,
little private college in Rocky Mountain College is in Eastern Montana, right?
in Billings, yep.
It's in Billings. Okay.
Yeah.
So, but you're still in Montana, this little college, private college, and you're experiencing this very pro-abortion messaging, which I think, as long as both sides are being presented, I think that's the main issue here is there wasn't anything in that textbook that you found or from reading your book in other places
Right.
where it's also presenting the pro-life side of here's the
Exactly.
reasons to keep your
Hmm.
baby and
Hmm.
here's what abortion actually is or how the procedures are done. It's just very single-minded
Hmm.
messaging, which I think we'd probably both agree it's just that's really dangerous for all of us to encounter, for young people to encounter. Like at that age, we're being taught how to critically think and how to
Hmm.
arrive at our values and our conclusions. And we trust our professors. And when you're a
Right.
parent and you send your child to a
Hmm.
college, you're trusting that school system to
Hmm.
help them become the best person they can be, not indoctrinate them to a certain political view. And
Hmm.
so I don't even necessarily think that I would advocate, I mean, in a perfect world, like, yeah, I don't think we should have pro abortion messaging in our textbooks at our colleges. But if you're going to have it, at least let's have the other side also state sponsored because you were bringing the other side, but that was through a separate club on campus. You guys were
Right.
advocating, spending your time outside of studying in class to bring that other side, really just combating the core curriculum that was at that college instead of having the core curriculum include both sides and help students make a decision about abortion themselves through education, which is how that's what critical thinking is. And so I see that as kind of a big red flag. And I was really surprised to see that we have it in Montana. And there's some places in Montana that I would kind of, presume that would be where they would lean.
Right.
Billings probably being one of them. But it's at U of M. And then across the country, there's similar things happening to students. And so yeah, I just think that that's correct, right? It's not like they were presenting both sides of the argument. It was just very one-sided.
Yeah, and I would say that at Rocky, um, it was a good school. I did enjoy my time there, and it wasn't as if, every single professor in class and everything on campus was very pro-abortion and shoving that in your face or trying to push a certain curriculum that pushed abortion. But I never, other than what we were doing as a club, never came across really the pro-life view, which I would say is probably common
Yeah.
in most places. A lot of the professors are probably more left-leaning. They're probably pro-abortion, and you're going to come across a lot of campus administrators that they don't want to see that pro-life messaging. Really, the issue that I came across was that they were kind of scared of the topic. They
Hmm.
thought it was too divisive, too confrontational. Um, and I mean, I'll say this that we had uncomfortable conversations with the chaplain of the college, and that really bothered me.
Wow.
Um, uh, gosh, just as a college with some Christian ties, I just could not believe some of the things that we weren't able to do, and we were trying to go about this in the most reasonable way possible. The college would allow uh, displays on campus um, that would be considered traumatic, I think, to a lot of people. I mean, they would have there's a crashed vehicle from a drunk driving accident that was placed like right on the lawn or right by the sidewalk where students walk by every day. And I had a friend who was running our club at the time who I think she lost an aunt to a drunk driving accident or something. That's traumatic to see that. The argument was that these, the crosses that we were going to put up, that was going to be maybe too traumatic for people to see, or that essentially there was going to come across as the school condoning this. But we were going to label clearly that it was the club putting the crosses up and all of that. And it's just really unfortunate when colleges don't allow you to have that open dialogue, really, which is something that this college in particular and a lot of others, they put it in like their student code of conduct that they champion open dialogue, and that's the point of college. You're supposed to be there to learn and to hear different viewpoints and to figure out, through critical thinking, like you said, what you believe. And I don't know, I just really felt like there was that void of nobody was talking about the pro-life issue. And so anyways, I know that, like you said, it like U of M, it's a much different situation. I am grateful that I did not have to deal with a lot that was going on there. Because of my work as sort of a journalist for Campus Reform, I would cover a couple of stories of what was going on over there, and that was pretty appalling. I do cover one or two instances in my book of kind of what went on at U of M there in Missoula. They had something called the Tunnel of Oppression, and they had this room talking about abortion and why essentially taking away access from abortion is bad, and just presenting like outrageous statistics about Catholic women, I think, wanting to access abortion, and like the pro-life narrative being oppressive and all of that. So yeah, you're gonna see that stuff in bigger colleges, and it is sad to see that happening in our state.
Yeah, I remember reading that in your book, and I find it so interesting that it's this tunnel of oppression. I imagine there was a room or an area potentially about slavery, and if not, I mean, that is what the first thing you think of when you think of let's talk about oppression in our history. And so just to have that like right next to something about abortion, and it's like they're saying, okay, abortion is oppressive, or pro-life is oppressive, and so and they're celebrating abortion, when really, if you look back in our history, the similarities in what's happened to the 63 million children with abortion, and just the dehumanizing language, which you really expose, you exposed it in that textbook story of they related a preborn child to just shooting a dead horse. Like I was raised on a farm. We've had to do that. It's awful, but it's very, I mean, that's not something that you would relate to doing to a child, and just to dehumanize them that much. And so I just think it's really interesting that, and I think it's important to expose that type of messaging, that abortion has a lot of similarities to how we dehumanized Black people within slavery, and the same people that are, saying that was awful and it's terrible, and that, racism still happens and all of that. They're the same ones that are saying, but abortion is good and it frees women, and they're completely ignoring the side that, well, what about that baby who is talked about, similarly to a horse that has a broken leg, and dehumanized in the language. They call it a fetus and a clump of cells, when science has proven at the moment of conception, there's a flash of light that happens, and every bit of your DNA is, created at that exact moment of conception. And that's before you're even implanted into the uterine wall of your mom. And everything is right there. And so I just find it really interesting that abortion is, as far as historical in our nation, is more similarly treated, or is it's as if, slavery is happening in a different form again, yet they're treating it as if, the pro-life side is the oppressive side and the side that takes away women's rights. But what about the woman in the womb, and what about her rights? And so I just think that's really interesting.
It's very twisted. Yeah,
it's very twisted, and that's why I think it's important just to talk about some of this stuff. And I love that you brought up what happened on the UM campus. I was going to mention that, and that was that like 2019 when that happened?
Probably right around there.
Yeah, so that was a few years ago. And then most recently on the UM campus, and not to like pick on one campus, like if we knew of other campuses doing this, we'd be talking about it too. It's more just to like show our listeners, this is happening in Montana. It's real. Be careful where you send your kids to college. Make sure that their values are solid before you send them, because if you send your kid to some of these colleges and they hear messaging like this, like they're probably not going to come out with the values that they hope they have. And it's happening in Montana. I think it's easy for us to think like, oh, sure, like Chicago or LA, like, there's big universities. Of course it's happening in Boston or whatever. But this is just little Montana, and we have it here. And most recently on the UM campus, Kristan Hawkins, who is the president of Students for Life Action, a nationwide pro-life organization, she was on the UM campus speaking just last September, on September 10th. And that was the day that Charlie Kirk was assassinated. And so obviously she's, hosting a pro-life debate. And she has a ton of agitators that are coming and people that are pro-abortion, which she invites. She's like us. We want to have those conversations and open and honest, respectful dialogue. But she, stopped in the middle of her talk and had got the messages that Charlie Kirk was assassinated, and she knew him personally. And he was also a champion for the pro-life movement. He believed that, babies are babies as soon as conception happens, and they're human. And the students that were at that meeting, that event on the UM campus, they were celebrating the fact that Charlie Kirk was assassinated. And I just think that shows that there are some campuses, there are some places where that what we're fostering in our students is not productive. It's hateful. And it doesn't matter if, they like Charlie Kirk or not. Like, I would still be saddened if someone that I did not agree with at all on the pro-abortion side was assassinated. Like, that's just not what you do, because we value life. And so I just think that, that was another just more recent, just really tragedy.
It shows the true just disdain for life completely.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is just
unborn or Charlie Kirk.
Whoever it is.
Horrible. It's just horrible. Yeah.
It is. And so yeah, I just think that like what I got from your book is I just think it's so important to, like you were saying earlier, just present both sides to people. And that as, whether we're a young person or we're, whatever age we are, whenever we find information, we need to just be really careful about obtaining both sides and obtaining both sides truthfully, finding the right stats. And for example, the Guttmacher Institute, they produce a ton of research and statistics and information on abortion specifically, which, I use some of their stats, but I think it's good for people to know that institute is run by Planned Parenthood. So like they're going to have bias to one direction. Sure. Similar to the Charlotte Lozier Institute, that is a pro-life statistical institutes. Like they're also running stats. So like these places that produce this information, there's biased information and what they're focused on. And it's just good people to know that, because then you can gather all the information and make the decision for yourself, not based off of just something that is, one-sided. And I think a lot of college students probably don't even know that it's one-sided. They just assume that it's fact when they go. I think that you probably had the value of, you had really strong values when you went in. You already knew that you were pro-life when you started college, right?
Yep.
Yeah. And so you went in with that knowing what it was. When I went to college, I was in my early 20s. I didn't go right after high school. I was like 22 or something when I started. And I went to school in Washington, and I went to a community college over there. And I didn't really know what abortion was. And we didn't really talk. There wasn't anything that came up about abortion, but I took a women's studies class just to check off my sociology class or whatever. And there was things in there about transgenderism. And I remember like, I don't think this is right, but why are we discussing
Mm.
this in college? Like, I'm not learning, like, it was just more of a values debate than it was like, let's learn some factual things about women and women's studies.
Sure. Yeah.
So it's happening
Which
all
I feel
over.
like it's so funny. If you attend like especially a liberal arts school, those conversations seem to happen so often.
Hmm.
Like in a number of classes, I had that happen.
Yeah.
And I would say most of the students in the room were similar to you. They didn't have any like preconceived notions of abortion for the most part, or they were fairly ignorant about what it is. And um, but also a number of them, had this inclination that probably not a good thing. I don't really know what it is or what it means, but it's probably not a good thing. Um, but
Right.
I I honestly always really enjoyed when those conversations would come up in a class because it gave me such a good opportunity to show this other viewpoint that the professor wasn't talking about or anybody else in the class. I had a public speaking course in I think my freshman year probably. And I did like one or two presentations on abortion. Like anytime I had the opportunity to present that pro-life viewpoint, I took it because it was just
Wow.
on my heart and um, nobody else was talking about it. And it's a scary thing to do and to talk about, especially with your peers. And um, but yeah, I hope that students in school that maybe don't know much about abortion um, that they're not just taking maybe their pro-abortion professor's word as the cold hard truth.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I would say, yeah, the advice would be one, just know that this happens, know that there's biased opinions that happen on campus, that it's happening in Montana. And we're not saying don't go to that university. We're just saying be aware of it, and
Yeah,
parents out there, be aware of this. And as
yeah,
a young person, if you're going to attend a college, just seek out the areas where you can learn to critically think and to
yeah,
think, analyze all the information. And that's what we try to do on this podcast is like, okay, here's info, some of it from both sides, but like, let's help people reach their own conclusion. Of course, our conclusion is always abortion is bad for men, women, and families. And we
mhm,
have a ton to back that up from our side.
yeah,
But yeah, I think just being aware of where to get the info. And so like some resources, like there's resources on abortignorancemontana.com. They can find some stuff there. You could research some things through Pro-Life Montana has resources. Montana Family Foundation has resources. Emily's book is a great resource just to expose. Like I would say parents, before you send your kids to a school, read
mm,
Emily's book. I was shocked to find out Whitworth University is in Washington, and I was going
mm,
to attend Whitworth. I very seriously considered it. And it's a Christian college. And I didn't end up going, but I was reading about Whitworth in your book, and they aren't just having this article in a textbook. They have funding and direct ties to Planned Parenthood, and they are suppressing the pro-life message, but they're amplifying. There's like Planned Parenthood cards going out and on bulletin boards and events and sponsorships. And I was just so shocked by that and so grateful that I didn't attend that university because, like I said, at that time in my life, I didn't really know what abortion was. I kind of knew it wasn't good, but if I had received some of that information, I very likely would have come out with a different opinion about abortion, and I would have never known, what it really is. And so I think it's good for people to do that. Live Action is another place. They have amazing videos about what their abortion procedures are. So I'd recommend people just go, if you want to see both sides of it, just go watch those videos. And that's what abortion is. And then you can decide, like, you're okay with how that baby is dying, the baby is dying, or you're not okay with it, but at least you have the information then to do it and to make that decision. So we have just a few minutes left, Emily. I know I wanted to talk about social media, but I think I'm going to have you on again because that's a whole nother conversation about social media messaging and
yeah,
a
yeah.
whole different ball game these days. So just any last thoughts that you have for our listeners?
Yeah, social media that is a whole other conversation probably. Well, I would just say that in terms of my book, it's It's a short read. It's pretty small, kind of little pocketbook size. Uh, but of course, encourage you to read it. And I have uh, a number of copies that are in my possession now. I was very blessed to work with um, a gentleman out of Minnesota who had his own publishing company, and um, he has since given the rest of the inventory that we have for my book to me personally. So
Okay.
if you would like to read the book, please feel free to reach out to me. Um, I can share my email address, I guess. It's just Emily M.Schneller@gmail.com. I can spell it. It's EMILY.SCHNELLER@gmail.com.
Perfect. Yeah, I highly recommend people go find that. It is an easy read. I was just telling Emily before we got on that I have had her book for a few weeks and I was reading little bits of it at night. And then I decided have a young son. He's 7 months old. One nap time this week, which he napped for like an hour and a half. I was like, I'm just going to read this book and I bet I can finish it. And I did. So it's a very easy read. It has a ton of information just about this stuff. And so including social media and different universities. And it's not hateful at all. It's not bashing colleges. It's actually very honoring, even to your college, which is great because it's not like, you can't just throw the baby out with the bathwater, so to speak. Like
Truly.
there's good and bad at these universities. It's just we need to be aware of the bias and the messaging so that we can just be educated about it and educate our kids about it so that when we do send them to colleges, they're not coming home with values that we just don't agree with. And like I said, maybe they're going to reach that they're pro-abortion anyways, but at least if they have all the information, then they're going to be able to make an informed decision for themselves and not just follow the crowd because there is peer pressure, there is professor pressure, there's institution pressure. And so I think it's just good to be aware of that. And I'm strongly of the opinion that when you do look at both sides with an open mind, and a genuine, desire to know the truth, I don't know how you could come out still being pro-abortion unless you're actually okay with babies dying. And I don't think anyone is actually okay with babies dying. I think that it's more of a women's rights issue, which we talk about in other podcasts. Like abortion is bad for women too. So, and you have a story according to that in your book that people should read. I love it. A young gal that was pressured into having an abortion. She was lied to at the abortion facility, and she was very regretful of that decision, and it affected her throughout her life. And so that's in the book too. So Emily Schneller, we can probably put her email up on our podcast notes. I'll clarify that with you. But it's Emily m.schneller@gmail.com for her book. She can mail it out to you. I definitely recommend you get it. And we will have you on again to talk about social media because that's like the whole second half of your book and a whole other conversation. So yeah, thank you so much for being on. And for our listeners, if you have thoughts, comments, questions about this discussion, or you have, a story that you experienced at a university, either on the pro-life side of like, hey, they do great and they're sharing both sides of the message, or there's something else in our state that we should be aware of, a different university that is really focusing in on this biased messaging, feel free to share that. Or if you have questions for myself or Emily, we're happy to have those or comments or anything. We love the discussion. So you can email abortignorancemt@gmail.com. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube as well. Find us there. And we're just very excited to have had Emily on, and we'll have you on again. And so until next time, guys, have a good one.